Welcome to Lesson 07, the SSH deep dive that separates junior engineers from senior ones. Here's the truth. SSH is the single most used remote tool in DevOps, and you'll hit it 50+ times a day for the rest of your career. Over the next 13 minutes, we're locking in 4 pieces, ed 25519 keys with the agent, a real SSH config, jump hosts and tunnels, and file transfer over SSH. Invest 30 minutes once, save hours every week, forever. Piece 1. Keys and agent. Password SSH is dead. Generate an ed 25519 key with a real passphrase. Push it to the server with ssh-copy-id, and never paste a public key into authorized keys by hand again. Then start ssh-agent once. SSH-add your key once, and that passphrase prompt is the last one you'll see today. Finish the job on the server side. Password authentication, no. Pub key authentication, yes. Reload SSHD, and brute force attacks against your box are now mathematically irrelevant. Now picture the real topology you'll be living in. Your laptop holds the keys in ssh-agent. The bastion is the one box exposed to the internet. Everything internal sits behind it on private IPs. ProxyJump stitches the hops together. Your agent forwards identity down the chain, and tunnels ride along for free. Configure it once in rsync, and reaching any internal target collapses into a single word. SSH internal target. That's the whole pro workflow in one mental picture. This is where that magic happens. The host star block at the top applies to everything. Keep alive so your sessions don't die, and control master multiplexing so the second connection to the same host is instant. Then you define bastion once, and dbprod points at a private IP with ProxyJump bastion. That single line is what turns a 2-hop nightmare into SSH dbprod. The rule is simple. Any host you SSH to twice earns an entry, and SSH becomes one word. Once your config is clean, the next superpower is port forwarding. SSH can carry arbitrary TCP through that same encrypted tunnel in 3 flavors. -L pulls a remote service onto your laptop. SSH L5432 dbprod 2 bastion, and suddenly PGAdmin talks to a database with no public IP. -R pushes the other way, exposing your local dev server to a remote host, ngrok without ngrok. And -D spins up a SOC S5 proxy, so your entire browser routes through the server. 3 flags and SSH stops being a shell, it becomes infrastructure. Same tunnel, different job. Now we're moving files. 3 tools, all riding SSH, SCP for a quick one-shot copy, rsync for everything else, and SFTP when you genuinely want to browse. The senior move is rsync-avz. Archive, verbose, compressed, because it only ships the diffs, resumes on failure, and with --delete, it mirrors directories exactly. Add --dry run before anything destructive. Rule of thumb, rsync by default, SCP only for tiny one-offs, SFTP almost never. Now flip from convenience to defense. A public SSH endpoint takes roughly 10,000 brute force hits a day, and 3 edits to sshd config shut that down cold. 1. Password authentication. No, keys only. Brute force becomes math no one can solve. 2. Permit root login. No. Make attackers guess a username and a key. 3. Move off port 22 and layer fail to ban on top, so the noise drops to nothing and the ban hammer handles the rest. Do these on every server, day 1. Step back for a second and look at why this lesson matters. 3 principles turn SSH from something you type into infrastructure that just works. 1. The afternoon you spend on setup pays back hundreds of hours over a career. 5 seconds saved per SSH, 50 times a day for 30 years. 2. Treat keys like infrastructure. Separate roles, rotate annually, hardware backed where you can. 3. ProxyJump makes bastions invisible, collapsing the multi-hop dance into a single word. Internalize these and everything else in this lesson clicks into place. Here's your cheat sheet. 12 commands covering every SSH situation you'll hit in production. Notice how they cluster. keys and agent for identity, connect and jump for reach, exec and tunnels for power, SCP and rsync for moving bytes. Print this, pin it above your monitor, and after about a week of varied remote work, it lives in your fingers. This single table is the daily reference that replaces 50 Stack Overflow tabs. Reference is nothing without reps, so here are 3 drills, about 40 minutes total, that bake this workflow into your hands for good. First, generate an ID25519 key and push it with ssh-copy-id until password prompts are gone. Second, write a real config with Control Master Auto so your second connection to prod is instant. Third, run an SSH-L tunnel to a private database and watch PGAdmin connect through an encrypted hop. Do these once, and the rest of your career gets faster. Now the flip side, 5 mistakes that quietly undo everything you just built. Stop generating RSA 2048. ID25519 is stronger, faster, and 1/8 the size. Keep private keys at 600 and the NUSH directory at 700, or SSH will refuse them outright. Never hand-paste public keys. ssh-copy-id exists for a reason. Don't use A on shared bastions. ProxyJump keeps your keys on your laptop. And on any public IP, disable root login and password auth before the brute force bots find you. And that closes the operation stage. 3 lessons down, packages, networking, and now SSH all locked in. From here, you step into the advanced stage, starting with shell scripting in lesson 8. The bash you'll write every single day, the 80% of glue code that ties this whole toolkit together. Keep the momentum. See you in lesson 8.